Welcome to another episode of Mindful Endeavors. I'm here with Garrett Broadhead. So, welcome, buddy.
Thank you, sir. How you doing?
I am doing fine. Just really quick, simple introduction of how we met. We met working at a gaming company, and just kind of it was kind of weird how we met, but then just kind of it was kind of odd how we met because but once like we came to like a not a confrontation, but we almost punched each other, and then ever since then we became best friends.
Told you not to sneak up on me.
That is true, and I didn't realize that your reflexes were going to be that sharp, and I was just like, holy crap, he definitely has scrapped before. So yeah, I was like, now I know definitely not to mess with them, or definitely not to sneak up on them, even if as a joke.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man. So, what happened?
Said good times though.
Very good times. I mean, it makes for a good story too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So, this podcast is basically kind of discuss just issues that normal people tend to go through and things that don't really get talked to about in the mainstream. It's one of those things where there isn't a lot of nuance to this, and we're just trying to bring that a little bit. And so the first thing, we were both outdoorsmen. You kind of introduced me into fishing. My first fishing trip ever was with you. We were catching a bunch of rockfish.
Oh yeah, we went out on the charter boat.
Yeah,
We kept birds nesting.
I didn't keep birds nesting. I kept hanging up other people's lines.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I was
I
using a
was
spinning.
bird nesting.
Yeah, I was using a spinning reel, and yeah, so I think for like what the first hour, I had to struggle trying to like make sure I wasn't crossing lines with other people, and I pissed off a lot of
Yeah.
people.
I mean, you did really good for your first time out there, and the fact that for some reason the boat was that packed during a winter fishing trip.
Yeah, dude, I think it was because what was it? The other deckhand got sick or something, and they were short deckhand.
Yes, something like that. But it
Yeah,
was a good time. I mean, you got like a couple fish out of that. Made some fish tacos.
I made enough for 5 fish tacos. Yeah, so
Oh yeah, you actually caught more than me that day too. That
but
was the kicker.
yeah, I did. I remember that was awesome. And I remember your buddy Doe was like getting a little seasick, and he was out of commission for the entire trip.
A little seasick. That dude was stuck in the galley as soon as we left port.
That's
Felt
true,
so bad. He
dude.
had
And,
to take a nap.
dude, and even I felt a little seasick, and I was just like, "What's going on?" But then after a while, it just went away. Because I
Yeah, it hit some people harder. Like I think when I first started going out on boats, I had to take Dramamine like all the time,
oh wow,
and then after probably about like 3, 4, maybe 5 boat trips out there, just I'm good now. Never get seasick unless I've been drinking.
of course. I think that was actually my first boat trip out at sea. I've been on boats before, but mostly like on the river or like on the lake, and
Oh yeah,
that's not really the same thing. Like,
yeah, completely different.
it's kind of weird. I mean, they're both the same bodies of water, but it's just I don't know. There's something about the ocean air.
Well, that too, and unless you're like out on Lake Mead, and even I think Lake Mead, you can still see parts of the shoreline.
Mm-hmm.
You go out in the ocean, man, and then you get out far enough, and all you see is blue sky, blue water, nothing but you and the boat.
Yeah.
At least if you're on a lake, you're kind of like, okay, we go down. I can swim that direction. We'll be good. Kind of shot in the dark.
Well,
You see the ocean.
when I'm on a boat, I don't think of us going down. so so it's like I'm hoping that it doesn't go down, but yeah. So
Well, hoping one hand, shooting the other.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, man. But yeah, dude. So how did you get? I already know, but how did you get into like the outdoors and such, and fishing especially? Because I know you were grooming me to be your fishing partner, your hunting partner, and ended up bailing on you and moving to Texas. But
Yeah,
yeah,
still a little bitter about that.
I I keep telling you come to Texas, and we can still be hunting buddies and fishing buddies.
Well, the possibilities in my future are limitless right now, so who knows what the future has in store.
Yeah.
But for how I got into it, I was just kind of raised around it. I mean, I was born in New Hampshire, out in the middle of nowhere pretty much, so it was just surrounded by forests, and my dad always had us living super far away from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always just make your own fun, and it was my dad from the second that we came home from the hospital, from being born and stuff. It was like drilling in the rules of firearms and firearm safety, as well as teaching us how to fish, and just really bringing us out and going hiking and just having an appreciation for it. So even still, when we moved over here to California, he still had us living further out from everybody. Mm-hmm. And he was always kind of like, hey, here's a dirt bike, here's a gun. Don't come home till, the sun comes down or the street lights come on, whichever one happens first. Couple places lucked out, and there were just kind of like ponds or rivers near me that I could just walk to, or, just miles and miles of forest, just kind of cruise around and make your own fun of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very fortunate that you got to grow up like that way, and I've seen the value of all that now, especially because especially like when you're locked indoors, because of COVID, and you need to get out, like being able to like just going out in fresh air, it's so underrated, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was really underrated. A lot of people nowadays like are just kind of stuck to whatever kind of screen indoors, and it might be a good thing, but the problem is like you really need to get out there. Like, you really need to like appreciate the world that you're living in. So it's like I said, it's really underrated. And but I mean, to make the point, because after COVID, there's been a lot of like sales in fishing equipment, camping gear, and things like that. So. And it's stuff that you can easily, like, if you follow the CDC guidelines, it's stuff that you can easily follow. Like, you're camping, you're not going to be like 2 feet away from the next camping site or whatever. So.
Oh man, some of these camping sites that I've been to, which as an outdoorsman kind of guy, I kind of just like hate the idea of campsites in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like paying to go to an allotted like B2 campsite. Where you're allotted like this small little space. It's kind of not really camping, I guess. I mean, it beats going out there on a fucking RV.
Yeah.
RVs are cool, but that's
really?
Not camping.
Yeah.
As they say.
Camping?
Glamping.
Oh, lamping. Oh, sorry.
Lamping.
Okay.
Like glamour camping.
Glamping. Gotcha. Glamping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, because for the longest time, it's like I don't want to be away from a toilet, so I'd be I'd be definitely part of like, yeah, pretty much. I want to make sure that I don't fall into the hole that we just basically excreted waste into. So especially at dark, when you're trying to go back and look for the same hole, you don't want to.
Yeah. If you do it enough times, you pick up some little tips and tricks on where to dig the hole. Little setups to, so that you're not hovering and doing your thing, and just little things to pick up and doing it over and over again.
Yeah, when I was looking at I was looking at fishing spots, and I checked this one out where it was out like about an hour away from me. It's actually in a state forest. I'm not sure, it's national forest, state forest. I can't remember, but. So you have the pond that's pretty much a natural pond there, kind of almost. I mean, all the ponds in Texas were, I think, if I'm not mistaken, man-made. There's very few, if not only like one. But anyway, the pond there, and then it's like right next to the camping site. So like you see all the people that are camping, and it's kind of like one of those things where you kind of have to go like the night before, reserve your spot, kind of, and it's you do that.
Yeah.
And I know that obviously it's the difference between doing that versus just like going out into a forest, going inside somewhere, like inside the trees and everything, picking a spot where you need to just post up and look for shelter. That's more of a goes along the lines of like survival and stuff. So I think that would be better to kind of like get used to. And then foraging too, like you gotta know how to forage in case you ever have to see yourself in that situation.
Eat the wrong berries or touch the wrong thing. I mean, God, how many times I've just kind of wandered through poison oak or poison ivy because I wasn't just paying attention to my surroundings.
Dude, the other day, I mean, it's not, it didn't happen to me in the forest, but like the other day I went to so-called nature center right here, out here in the suburbs, right? And like there's 7 different ponds, and there was one pond that I haven't fished before, and I went there and my lure got stuck in one of the branches. So it was about like 4 or 5 feet away from me. I couldn't like. I was afraid of like pulling hard on the fishing pole because I didn't want the hook to dig even deeper into the tree branch. So I tried getting closer, so I was able to like lift it vertically, and so the pond itself was a little bit. It was drying up a little bit, so it gave me the impression that it was pretty shallow, and there was like maybe 2 feet of dirt, right? 2 feet of dirt before the water line. So all right, I'm like thinking, okay, I could step on the dirt, and that'll give me enough, close enough to be able to just pull it vertically. I step on that, all of a sudden I see both feet just go, just like slide right in there, and I'm just like, whoa, 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 and then I'm thinking, all right, well, if I get into the water, I'll be able to get out of there quick. I didn't realize that the exact point where the water line was at, there's like a 3 foot, maybe 4 foot drop, like at that exact. Yeah, and then there's a bunch of like vegetation around there, and I'm just like, oh no, I'm gonna fall into something that's gonna be poisonous. So I think I went up to my knees in water, and yeah, I was just like, oh my god. So now I have the pole in one hand. I'm trying not to tug on it so I don't lose my $15 lure, and then I have my other hand on the grass, just trying to make sure to keep me from sinking in even further. And I'm like trying to like, the minute I let go of my hand, all of a sudden I slide even further, and I'm like, no, 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 no. So I was stuck, dude. Luckily, now I normally fish alone, and that particular time I had a buddy that I just met recently. Oh, if he wasn't there, dude, I would be screwed because I would have to like throw the fishing pole somewhere, and I would have lost something.
Yeah, you probably lure, just get that line, save the reel and pole, and climb on out. But
That was what I was thinking, but then luckily I felt that dude just pulling my arm, the arm that had the leverage on the grass, and I felt him pulling it out, and I was just like, I couldn't help but laugh. Dude. I was just like, my God, I can't believe this happened to me, dude. Like the freaking mud, dude. Like it was muddy, but it looked like solid. It looked like dirt that was solid. No,
nature be doing that.
nature can have a way to mess with you, dude. Like it'll fuck you up. Like that's why you don't mess with nature, dude. Nature is very, very vicious.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got caught in. I don't know if I want to call it quicksand per se, but I was out hiking in Duluth, which is this area down here in between like Fallbrook and Temecula up there in the mountains.
Mm.
And I would always, just get into the river and hike up the river. It was always a bit more fun being in the water and doing that, or crossing the water and go back and forth between all that.
Mm.
And this weekend that I decided to go hiking, it had rained earlier that week, and the riverbed was more of a gravel and like really fine sand type of riverbed. So I'm with my friends, and I'm just walking up ahead, and just shooting the shit or whatever. And I go and step, and as soon as I put any pressure down on the riverbed, my entire leg, all the way up to my hip, just all the way down, just sucked underneath the sand and gravel. And then it all started like compacting in. My leg got stuck. Like one knee's like up to my chest while the other one's stuck in the bottom of the river, and I'm just like soaked in water just as this river's just pouring over me. I have to dig my leg out. While that's happening, my leg's cramping.
Oh
So
no!
Now I got this compounding sand that's like suctioning me in with my leg cramping, and then I got like two other guys digging my leg out while I got another one picking me up from behind and like pulling me out. I was like, look, man. If boy, I just had a walking stick, or something. Check where you're going.
You know what?
That would help out in both situations.
You know what? A walking stick now sounds very, very logical. Like, dude, like
I wish I had one.
well, I mean, so do I nowadays. But luckily, like I said, I had my buddy there, and like I normally fish by myself, so it's like, yeah, like if you check out my Instagram, it's just. I'm always most of the time taking pictures of myself, like somehow, like in some shape or form. But yeah, that day I got lucky to have my buddy, or else I'd be screwed. I would have lost some kind of form of money, or myself.
I mean, there's definitely something about being out in nature by yourself, whether it be just hiking or hunting or fishing. But with nature comes some element of danger and risk. And, you know, granted, the couple things that are our particular cases, they weren't exactly heavily dangerous.
No.
Per se, but also had someone else not been there to help us out, would have been a hell of a lot more cumbersome than what it was. So,
I mean, but
time and place for both, really.
Yeah, there is a time and place for both. You're right. The thing is, though, it's like that kind of experience for me. Like I had a bad work week that week, and that kind of experience just kind of took it all away. And that was just like maybe 5 minutes of like danger to a certain degree, but you know, because there was also turtles in there too, so you know they could also mess you up.
Get those snapping turtles too.
The alligator snapping turtles, dude. Oh, those mother effers. Yeah, them gator turtles, dude. Like,
big honking things, man.
Yeah, dude. They have like mouths almost the size of my fist, dude. It's like holy crap. And
you got people out there noodling, dude, sticking their hands in holes and getting bit by those guys.
I don't think there's not many people noodling in Texas, but like if you go to like Tennessee, dude, like I've seen people that pull out snapping turtles and they're just like rah rah rah, you know.
Sorry for the derail on the snapping turtle.
No, it's all good. But you know the funny thing is like it wiped out like that mental stress that I had that entire week. Like it wiped it out within like 5 minutes, and you know like to this day I'm still talking about it and I'm laughing about it, right? So that's kind of like the importance of being outside. I mean, you don't want to get yourself in like dangerous situations. That's not what I'm saying, but just being outside, you know, exploring a little bit, being a little bit more adventurous, whether by yourself or with a few other friends. You know, it definitely helps like decompress and because I don't know about you, like I mean I like sometimes video games do help, like you know stuff like that that's indoors, but there's something about the outdoors that just makes it all that better, you know. And it's like I mean, it's just better for your mood and all that stuff. And that's one of the things that, for me, like, it was kind of hard to get into growing up. It wasn't impossible. It's just that if I had known what I know now, it would have been easier to get in. But just because, like, you know, you had your dad to teach you all this stuff. My dad wasn't an outdoorsman. Neither was nobody in my family was an outdoorsman. I'm, like, the first person to actually be exploring, hiking, and things like that.
Start of a generation now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so if I do have like I was hoping to get my nephew into all that, but you know he's in California and I'm in Texas, so but still like if I have my kids, or you know if I get into a position where I could teach somebody, then you know now like you said it's the start of a new generational trend, and same thing with like you know like things like firearms, archery, like nobody in my family really did that. The most that anyone has really done is maybe motorcycling, but other than that like nothing really. So it's kind of different. It's kind of weird seeing like being the only person that does all that in my family, and it's very interesting, you know. But at the same time, like I don't. I just wish I would have done it sooner, really.
See, it's funny because family situation was a little inverse. So like most of my family, like 90% of them, all outdoorsy, blue collar workers, you know, like people of the earth type of deal, and I'm definitely still that type of person. That's what I was raised around. That's what I like to do. But I'm also the only one that's tech savvy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like the only IT guy in the entire family and do all that. So
same. I mean, I'm the only one that really knows some tech, you know, and like my family would have like, hey, how do I do this? How do I do this? And they would always come to me. So it's kind of a little bit different now since I'm not there. So. They kind of have to figure it out on their own, but yeah, I mean, I like so like it's kind of tough. Like, it kind of leads me into like our next topic. It's kind of tough to really find time when you know you're kind of like in like this you know routine where you have to like go to work and you know pay for your bills, and if you have like a significant other, and I mean we both don't have any kids or anything, but you know if in the case where you have kids, it's a little bit tough to really start to do all those things. Obviously, when they get a little bit older, I would imagine it's easier because you can take them along, and you know, it's
force them to go too.
Yeah, you can kind of.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, Yeah, but it's to spend the amount of time that you would normally spend. Like I'm noticing right now too, like with all the stuff that I'm doing. Like I mean, trying to post daily and everything, going out and fishing a lot. It's like, well, if I had a significant other, I mean, unless she was like doing the same exact like thing that I was doing, like and even in the same routine, it would be a struggle, dude. And like, it's tough to really kind of like do that, especially when like you find a significant other that tends to not be so outdoorsy. I mean, there's definitely more things to click on than just the outdoors, but
Oh yeah, like
yeah, and it gets harder, man. And like what's your, it gets difficult. I mean, I would imagine the last girl I was dating, I wasn't an outdoorsy person back then, so I can't really like say for experience. But like, what's your opinion on like how can you balance things like that? I mean, it's kind of tough when the person is like just not interested. But what do you think?
yeah, I mean, it takes a special kind of person. They either have to like the outdoors just as much as you and want to be a part of that, to understand that this is a passion of yours and it's something that you're going to do and want to do, and they can either be a part of that or not stand in the way.
Yeah.
Like you get with somebody knowing that, oh, they go out fishing every weekend, or like every Sunday is like their fishing day. That's what they do. Or they like to go camping, just anything outdoorsy. And then you get with this person, and then you're upset by the things that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, then what was the point? Like, you already knew what they were about before getting into it. So at that point, you either need to come to terms with that, and you can still choose to not have an interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can't ask that other person to not go do these things.
Right.
Or you take the other path of, hey, it's not really my thing, but I like this person, and I want to be a part of their world, at least in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And you go out and do it every now and then.
Yeah, I hear you because I remember there was a couple girls in my lifetime where like they were a lot more outdoorsy than I was, and I was kind of looking more, not necessarily for stability, but I was just kind of being more of a, like, I guess you could say a homebody, right? And like I would, I'd be like, well, we get along in terms of like, like just personality and everything, but the whole thing about like constantly traveling, I wasn't like about it, right? But now fast forward like 4 or 5 years later, and it's like, man, if only I had taken the freaking the risk, I would have definitely loved it. Like honestly, like and now like I'm even doing hiking like and exploring different fishing spots, and we could have done that together. You know, at the very least, like you said, like there's stuff that you can get with, like for example, like the whole hiking thing, traveling thing, and maybe not the fishing thing, but there's definitely stuff that we can like compromise on like, okay, this is our time, this is your time, and things like that.
Well,
And
even with the food, I can kind of understand the fishing part to an extent too. I guess it really kind of depends on what type of fishing, because you're primarily a lure fisherman, yeah.
yeah, right now so far, I mean, well, I fish for like some fish with bait, but other than that, lure.
So, like for like a compromise that I was trying to have with my past girlfriend is not about fishing. It's like, okay, well, I want to go fishing. How about you come out with me and go fishing with me? Like, you don't have to do anything, but we can like have a picnic, hang out. You're just doing some bait fishing. You just cast it out there with a bobber, wait for something. And during that downtime, you're just spending time together, just shooting the shit, talking, cast it out, put on your bait clicker, go for a quick walk or something. At that point, it's just about being outdoors with your significant other.
Yeah.
And you get to fish. Like, that sounds like a win-win to me.
Yeah, especially if you get a catfish, you also get dinner for later.
Oh, hell yeah. All about that catfish fry.
Catfish fry. That's what it was. So I'm trying to get. I want to really get like one of those outdoor like fryers, and just kind of like take some coconut oil and just like as soon as you get a catfish.
For that, all you need. So I got this little. It's literally about big. I know you probably can't tell too big or too much of a size comparison to the camera, but it was probably maybe about 10 inches tall, about I don't know, maybe 6 inches wide, little backpacking stove. Real compact, real small, but packs a punch. I don't know if you ever remember that big cast iron pan that I had,
Yeah.
like the full size one. That was my backpacking cast iron,
Damn.
and I would have this little stove that I would just throw on there. You know, the thing, the big cast irons, it's plenty of throw oil in there, and then just throw it on there, and you're good to go. You don't need to get no special deep fryer or anything like that.
Yeah, and for those that are just listening, like the hand gesture in terms of like the little stove that he was talking about was maybe looks like about like a radius of like 8 inches or something like that. That's what he was kind of like gesturing with his hands, and then the cast iron that he was talking about, I think it was like that would probably be like what 12 to 14 inches or something like that.
Yeah, 12, 14 inches around, probably about 3, 4 inches deep.
Yeah, so that's what Garrett's kind of working with it. Yeah, I mean, dude, like you can get pretty like that's the one thing that I do respect from you a lot, that you do a lot with little, and that is something that I think again is undervalued, and definitely people should kind of get into the habit. I'm not saying that give away all your possessions and go ahead and
Yeah, give everything away and start from scratch. Work with what you got. Figure it out.
yeah, I'm not trying to say that either, but it's like, but it's one of those things that for sure, because I mean I mean not from in the outdoors world, but I definitely have experiences doing a lot with a little. But it's something that I feel like definitely needs to be passed on, just because you never know when you're going to find yourself in a situation where you don't have a whole lot and you need to, kind of be creative.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and like that's another thing that kind of contributes to mental health is like the stability of knowing that, oh well, I mean maybe I won't have this today, maybe I won't have that tomorrow, maybe, and stuff like that, and like especially right now during like what happened after COVID, like a lot of people didn't know if they're gonna run out of food because as you saw in California, yeah, in California it was rough, like it was really rough.
So I will definitely agree with the fact of knowing what I can do with what little I have, or what few tools that I have, what little money I would have, or just anything. Being able to make it work, whether by utilizing what I do have or having the skills to go out and get what I need, definitely helps with the confidence. Like especially going into this whole COVID thing, like I wasn't out there panic buying like everybody else was, and seeing all that. Like I got the bare minimum of the things that I needed and purchased. You make smart purchases, and other than that, you have the skills to go fishing, you go fishing.
Mm-hmm.
The fish aren't affected by COVID. You go hunting, you're set up with that.
Hold on, give me a second. There's a little bit of a. Okay.
That's me. Red Cross is calling me for a blood donation.
Oh, that was you? Okay. I was like, I thought there was like something wrong with the audio.
I thought I turned my ringer off. I was like, oh no.
It's all good, but you were saying like, yeah, the fish aren't affected by COVID, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, sitting here with the knowledge, knowing that even if stores weren't something that I could just go to and get what I needed, but knowing the skills to get what I would need to survive outside of, I guess, a civilized society, definitely had a confidence booster with that going into this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't that person buying $500 worth of toilet paper or paper towels and punching old ladies to get the last can of Spam.
Oh my god, that was rough. That was rough. Yeah. No, yeah, like it was tough seeing my family go through all that because I mean, luckily they had enough to get to hold out until the supermarkets were able to kind of figure out a way to make sure that everybody got enough or at least something. So but it was tough seeing all that. Couldn't really see that. I couldn't really help them out, but at the same time, it's like there's definitely issues with our food logistically, and it's kind of hard. I mean, some of it may be a political issue, but and that's not what this podcast is about. But the fact of the matter is that having that uncertainty definitely plays into mental instability, and this is not even an issue that's new just to COVID. Like it's an issue that's been going on for a while, so it's really really tough. It's something like you said, like you can like if it really gets really bad, you can just get like, well, yeah, if you like, especially like if you're a lure fisherman, You can go out to the lake, get a bass. If you really have to, you can eat it. Um, I mean, if you really have to, like, just go out and just shoot some rabbits and squirrels and just eat that, right? Like,
You gotta be careful with the rabbits, though. There is something called rabbit starvation.
ooh, what's that mean? I mean, well, obviously they're starved, but yeah.
Yeah, so basically, from paraphrasing this whole thing, it's been a while since I searched it up.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, rabbit meat doesn't have enough of the nutrients that you would need. It's almost pure protein because there's like no fat on rabbit whatsoever.
Mm.
And if you're doing nothing but eating rabbit, your body will eventually starve itself to death because all you're eating is solid protein.
Okay.
And you're not getting any other type of nutrients out of that. And I believe there was a story of, I think it was somewhere in like the Arctic North or something, where there was these adventurers or explorers who were trapped out there, and all they had to eat was rabbits, and they eventually starved to death from that because they didn't have any starches or vitamins or minerals. It was just like 100% lean rabbit meat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I know that the diet varies from like region to region, and now that we have more, I guess you could say more globalization in the sense that you can basically travel almost anywhere, you can almost live anywhere. Granted, there's certain rules with citizenship and borders and all that stuff, but for the most part, it's a lot more accessible nowadays that we have like planes and stuff. So like traditionally, like certain groups of people, certain people in certain regions were adapted better to eat certain types of diets and stuff like that. Like I think if you look at like people that more in like the Nordic region, like they tend to be strive better on just meat and like fats rather than high carbs or medium carbs or whatever. But and people closer to the equator, they're more adapted to like eat more carbs and stuff like that. So there's a whole long studies about that. But yeah, like, but I mean the funny thing is though is like a lot of the outdoorsmen were pretty good. Like they were good on meat because a lot of them came from hunts and things like that. So they had meats full. They had fridges full of meat and they had freezers full of meat. So they were okay. I know I was okay because I mostly go to like grass fed like ranchers and stuff like that, and they were perfectly fine because the whole holistic approach was a lot better suited for COVID because it wasn't so centralized. So they were able to process everything there, and if they needed to follow the CDC guidelines, it was a lot easier to do. So they were. I talked to a few farmers, and they were killing it. Like they had no issue. I mean, they were actually for the first time ever, they actually couldn't keep up with demand. Typically, they tend to have a little bit extra, and
most people aren't going in on buying whole cows or anything like that.
Right. Right. I mean, it's something that's a little bit more expensive, so there's more of a barrier of entry for that, But ideally,
well,
I mean,
the upfront cost, sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you were actually weighing it out pound for pound, like it's actually cheaper to have someone go in like halves on a cow with you.
Well, yeah, but in the case where you don't, so that's what I mean by like barriers of entry.
Not very many people have like $3,000 plus just lying around to buy a fucking cow.
I mean, yeah, dude, because like I know a person that basically only raises 2 cows per year. They buy them at like when they're calves, and they sell half of the meat from each cow. So that kind of allows them to buy the next calf and everything, and raise it from scratch. So they basically they're writing, but yep, they're writing blank checks basically. So they have
that's a good idea.
Yeah, dude, they're printing money, dude. Like basically, like I mean, obviously metaphorically speaking, like that. When you don't have to pay for that cost, you're pretty much set, right? Granted, change.
The only cost that comes out of it is the cost of the labor and feed, really.
Yeah, and realistically, excuse me, realistically, like, I mean, it's really most of the cost is labor. It's a lot more labor intensive than people realize, and then I mean, it's depending on what region that you're at. Sometimes you do have to go out and spend a little bit more to make sure they have enough feed and everything. So, like especially in colder climates, you gotta make sure that the water doesn't freeze and all that stuff. So, it's a whole process and everything. But the thing is that people can do it, and I mean, granted, not everybody has the land to be able to do that, but at the very least, like you can start with chickens. Like you can definitely start with chickens. Like and just have eggs. Like if you're eating eggs are very nutritious, and
there's nothing quite like waking up in the morning, checking the hen coop, and getting some fresh eggs, and cracking those for breakfast.
Mm, I would imagine. I still I wanted to get chickens when I had my house in California. I think when I get my house here, I definitely will invest in some chickens. And definitely.
Uh, they're worth it, man. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
even if you're only getting like 6 eggs a week, man, that's still.
yeah. Well, I think with like I don't know how the egg yield is, but I think somebody was telling me that with like 5 or 4 chickens, they were getting like I don't know close to like 36 eggs a week or something like that.
Yeah, it really depends. You know,
Yeah.
like I've had we've had some chickens that really didn't lay too much. Then we had ones where we wondered how they were pumping out so many.
Yeah.
You know, but there probably is an average to it. I'm not a chicken farmer. I just know, hey, we had some chickens and laid some eggs. Sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less.
Yeah, no, definitely. We got to remind our listeners that we're not necessarily experts in these type of fields. I mean, there will be hopefully some experts every now and then, but it's really meant to like have conversations, like I said, nuanced conversations with just regular people, which do go missing a lot. But yeah, like I really want to wake up to having chickens and having the checking the hen for the coop for like the eggs and stuff. I definitely want to look forward to that. So I'm hoping to work towards that. You know, but that kind of brings me to another point that isn't really talked a whole lot, and it's kind of sad, really. When you look at like how many kids were already going hungry before COVID, it was like 1 in 5, I
Oh,
think,
yeah.
and then it jumped up to like 1 in 7, like just after, from shutting down the schools, and it was bad. You know, it was one of those things where again, the nuance of that is just gets swept under the rug, and it's tough. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to get in any politics of it or anything like that, but I definitely the way food in general was handled during this whole COVID thing was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like the amount of food just wasted for some reason because someone decided we couldn't ship it or we couldn't drive it or we couldn't give it away. So it was better to just destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
Made no sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it was like the whole thing with the potatoes, like tons and tons and tons of potatoes just going to waste that could have fed like thousands of people.
Yeah.
Or like the waste of food just in general, and like even outside of COVID, because I work 2 jobs. My morning job is at a grocery store where I do stockings for the shelves and the delegate section, whatever. And the amount of food that I have to throw away, like almost daily, like it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
How much, like there'd be days where I remember thinking back to when I was younger of wondering where my next meal was going to come from. And here I am throwing away 4 full shopping carts of stuff because someone didn't want to buy it. And, company policy saying you can't give it out, can't give it to homeless, can't sell it to people at a discount. It has to go in the dumpster.
Yeah, and it's really like you said, it's really tough to really kind of go into depth with that without getting into a political issue,
Yeah.
right? So but it's sad, really, because again, like a lot of kids too, like when they grow up hungry, like it definitely affects like how they grow up mentally and everything, and like mental health is everything. Like honestly, like mental health, I now go through that. I mean, now that I went through like how stir crazy I was getting through COVID, I definitely like. I mean, I'm in the position where I kind of want to focus more on mental health, just because of how important it really is, and how little it's really actually gets talked about. Like it's ridiculous.
What's
Like
what they call it, the unseen diseases,
yeah,
essentially.
no, yeah, I agree, and I used this quote. I talked about this in my last episode, where it's like, the show Community has this line where it's supposed to be a comedic line, but when you look at when you actually start looking at mental health, it kind of makes sense. Where it's like sometimes the prisons, the hardest prisons to break out of are the prisons without bars, and you look at like things where like that affect you mentally, and like like there's times where if a person is not mentally suited for like being able to hold on, I got a text. So yeah, so if sometimes we're like people aren't mentally like suited like because it's not an issue where it's just like, oh, just toughen up and like, like, yeah, like you should be able to like do or you should be able to at least try to do more with less. But it doesn't always like play out that way. Like sometimes like the deck is stacked so much against you that it's just damn near impossible. So and yeah, like even before COVID, like just people, how many people are going hungry, how many people like are having issues, and like just suicide rates, like the fact that there's suicides, like that needs to be talked about. It's not. I mean, there's issues where it's like I think there's suicide prevent awareness month, and sure that's great, but it's only for a month. Like it's like
posting a suicide prevention hotline number like every chance you get isn't actually doing much.
Yeah.
I'm sure it has helped some people. Like I actually do know a few people who have had to use that call, and I'm thankful that it's there. But that's not a fix. Like it's not solving any of the problems. Like you need to get what's the word I'm looking here for? You need to get it talked about and have people being more aware of it, taking it seriously before it gets to the point where someone feels like their last ditch effort is to call some stranger at the end of a 1-800 number.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of why like I wanted to start this podcast, just because if people maybe are aware that there's other people that are dealing with the struggles, or have seen other people that are dealt with the struggles, and if they could kind of better relate to other people, and they know that hey, you're not alone. This is not like something to tell you like just toughen up. It's just to let you know, hey, there's other people out there, and there's other people that have asked for help, and it's okay to ask for help. Like you don't necessarily have to always go about it alone. And even through life, like you don't necessarily always have to kind of push forward. Like there's time you can have rest points. You can have points where you just stop and reassess your values, reassess your not your values. I'm sorry, reassess your progress, reassess like your priorities, reassess what you really need to fix to basically address the issues of mental health so you can be a lot happier. And once you're a little bit happier, certain stress kind of like decompresses. I mean, certain stresses kind of not necessarily go away, but they don't affect you as hard, And
Oh yeah.
that's the key thing where I'm like, I see a lot of people that want to say like, oh yeah, you need to do this, and it'll get rid of all your worries and all that stuff. But I don't really think that's accurate. Like sometimes like I feel it's like it's like they don't necessarily, your worries don't go away, but you at least can deal with them better. Like, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, and not everyone's way of releasing stress is going to work out for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're similar in the aspect of, hey, we're having a rough day, go fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Just go for a hike, go outdoors, go do your thing. But that's not everyone's thing. Not everybody likes to go hiking, or some people don't even like being outdoors, like in any capacity. So each person does, like the core saying of each person needs to figure out a way to manage their stress and de-stress and do all that. I mean, it's true. And, saying like, hey, this works for me, give it a try, see if it works for you, is probably the best that you can do. Yeah. But to go into it and acting like, oh, fishing's going to cure everything, like that's an arrogant ass attitude.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, to be fair, yes. That's kind of why this whole podcast is really more about mental health, but there is stuff like the outdoors that is going to tie into that. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be the outdoors, like you said. Like, it could be cooking. It could be at least going to the gym. It could be reading books. Like, that's another thing that a lot of people don't do a whole lot anymore, reading books and, like, just having something to kind of deal and cope with stuff, or just having better ways to communicate with your significant other. Like, you saw how many, like, divorce rates went up after COVID, after the lockdown. Apparently, that was kind of ridiculous.
You get people locked in 24/7 with people that they think they love, and then they find out, oh, I actually don't really know this person because I work like 80 hours a week, or I'm just never home, or I actually haven't spent this much time with this person.
Yeah, dude, it's ridiculous that it had to happen that way, right? Like, it's almost. I mean, I hate to be like laughing about it, but it's just it really is ridiculous that.
With the dark humor.
Yeah, it's a little bit of dark humor. I'm not trying to like ridicule anybody that's gone through divorce. Like, I'm really do like regret that. Like, I mean not regret, but I do really like feel for that. Like, it's
oh yeah, man. I mean, I went through my breakup during COVID. So,
See, yeah, you know, it's messed up that it had to be that way, but it just kind of plays into the issue that a lot of problems aren't talked about or dealt with, or we don't have the mental capacity to really deal with all that stuff. I mean, you already
yeah,
have the
I mean,
pressure, but go ahead.
I think the majority of people, or at least a large number of people in our society now, don't actually face their issues or their problems. We tend to mask them or ignore them or just look for distractions, especially with how prevalent technology is and how our seemingly attention spans have been dwindling year over year over year.
Mm-hmm.
So if something's bothering you, you're just going to push it off to the side and ignore it and act like it didn't happen. You're going to turn on Netflix. You're going to watch some show, or you're going to play some video game, or you're going to do something to put it out of your mind rather than facing the reality or the truth of any issues that you have, and really trying to figure out how to either overcome your issue or overcome the obstacle or just move forward in general.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean that's kind of, and again it goes back into having nuanced discussions. Like, you know, it's I mean, like already with like the pressure of losing your job and like employment not kicking in, or like this extra stimulus not kicking in, it's like it's already like pressure enough, especially if you're the sole breadwinner. And there's nothing wrong with setting yourself up that way if that's the way you want to set up your family structure. You know, hey, if you do what you think is best, I'm not here to criticize or judge or anything, but in the situations where you're the sole breadwinner, it gets scary, man. It gets scary. And like I've heard that like in the past, like it was easier to deal with because people had more savings. But nowadays, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, so it's even more of a struggle, dude.
Well, what was it? I saw something, of course, on the internet
Mm-hmm.
where we can stumble across most things. I think more people need to realize that they're three missing paychecks away, or they're closer to three missing paychecks away from being homeless more than they are to becoming a millionaire. Paraphrase, because I don't remember the exact thing, but you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And everyone's acting like we're just kind of millionaires to be, rather than realizing, hey, like, you could literally lose everything in a month. Not even a month, like in a span of a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Miss a few bills, lose your car, lose your job, everything's gone.
Yeah, that's also another important thing, that even though like you're doing all these things to like mentally decompress, you don't want to like take it for lightly that your foundation really. I think it's also important that you don't want to stress it, you don't want to overthink it, right? But you
Be
should be
prepared for the worst, but don't dwell on it.
right. Be prepared for the worst, but don't well, yeah, be prepared for the worst, like at all times. Like you never know. Like it's I mean, even nowadays, like it's more what is it, uncertain what your next day is going to be like than ever, really. I mean, things are changing a lot more, and it's, I don't know what really we can contribute that to, but I just know what's going on. And financial stability too, that plays into mental health as well. Whether, I mean,
Oh, yes, it does.
yeah. And I have one of my buddies who we're gonna eventually discuss that, because he's big into like financial stability and things like that. And he's one of the guys I want to bring on the podcast to really go over some of those things, because it all plays into mental health. Like a lot of things play into mental health. That's why it's so important that we have nuanced discussions.
Well, I mean, mental health is kind of the center of everything, because, I mean, every decision we make, everything we do, like literally everything is centered around your brain.
Right.
Like your brain makes the decisions, your brain makes you move. It's depending on your outlook on religion and spirituality, that's where you reside in.
Mm-hmm.
Like you gotta take care of your brain just as much as you gotta take care of your body, just as much as you gotta take care of your wallet. But they're all interconnected.
Yeah.
You take care of your wallet and your body, it tends to help take care of your brain. If you take care of your brain, it tends to help take care of the others.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly right. I mean, there's really no way of like going about it. Like, I mean, you can't just like you focus on one, just completely disregard the other one. Like, you have to kind set yourself up in a sense like, okay, what do I need to work on the most this week? Maybe a little bit of like the mental health. Maybe I should go on a little trip this week. Next week, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. Maybe look at other additional streams of income or something. Oh, what about next week? Like maybe I should eat better that week. You know, things. It's a lot of things to really. I know it can get a little overwhelming, and it's a lot of things to go about. But at least we have to start trying. That's the thing. At least we need to try.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a thing too. One is the trying, and also I like how you were saying little. Like everybody has this. I guess I won't say everybody, so I don't want to generalize it. But a lot of people have this thing where they're like, okay, I'm going to work on my mental health, and then they have this huge list of everything they're going to do, and they want to work on all of it at the exact same time. Mm-hmm. Because they want to get to their end goal as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. But all that's doing is you're half-assing a whole list of things, and then that's stressing you out. So you're actually working against yourself.
Exactly.
But you got to do just little bits of this, little bits of that. Mm-hmm. Try this, try that. Work on one thing at a time. You know, it's a grander picture of it all, not just so much of, by the end of the week, I want to be completely mentally healthy. I'm going to defeat my depression in like 3 days' time. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to figure out everything. And everything's going to be great because I have this checklist that I'm working on all at the same time.
Right.
It's overwhelming, and you can't do it.
Yeah.
Sure, there might be a couple things that you can do side and side because they're two familiar or related things that, you know, mesh together. But the majority of everything you need to work on can't all be done in one go, and shouldn't.
It really shouldn't. And another thing too, to add to that, is not to let anybody else dictate like how you go about it. Like you need to go about it the way you need to, like the way you think is fit. But at the same time, don't be don't be afraid of reaching out for help. Like, but at the same time, it has to come from you. So it's one of those things where you hear a lot of people that are like, especially like you hear all these like self-help people that are like, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. And sure, if that resonates with you, go for it, right? But it's not a one size fits all type of thing. It really isn't. Nobody knows what the struggle is.
I think that ties into a bit of a lot of people, or some people, don't actually want to think about it. They don't want to solve the problem. They want somebody else to solve it for them. Mm. They want to be told how to fix it, told what to do, and told the steps to do it. So they're looking for somebody to just do that for them, rather than have to look in the mirror themselves and really look at who they are and what their issues are and what they need to do as an individual to overcome it.
Right, because I mean, again, like nobody knows yourself better. No one knows yourself better than yourself. Like that's what it always comes down to. A lot of people are kind of, I don't know. I feel like nowadays when you look at like, you know, things like the media and stuff like that, it's more about like telling you how to think versus actually telling you how to think for yourself. You know, or like teaching you how to think for yourself, not necessarily telling you. But there's definitely a lot of things that contribute to that, and like and again, don't be afraid to ask for help. Like that's one of the things that I want to stress out, the most important thing, because like again, we go back to the prison thing. Like you're like, if you don't reach out for help, you're basically stuck in a mental prison. Like, and you know, you don't want that. Like that's where we kind of go into that metaphor where it's like, like a mental prison doesn't have any bars, but sometimes some people can't get out of that, like whether it's addiction or other things, right? So yeah, we gotta basically be less afraid to have these discussions and actually just talk to one another. Like that's another thing. Like we are social people to a certain degree. Some people do it better, some people don't like it, and that's fine as long as they're mentally healthy, right? But in the cases where like you feel a little stressed, you know, if you need to talk to somebody, grab a beer with somebody, hug somebody if you want. I don't know, like whatever you think is best. Talk to your friends. Talk to anybody else. Like you said, before you hit that suicide prevention hotline, like there's other steps. Like I know it's tough, but we gotta at least try. And yeah, I mean the outdoors definitely helps. It for certain people, not everybody. It's not, like I said, it's not one size fits all. Luckily,
I think it could help everybody in some degree. Personally, now I don't think it's the fix for everybody. Mm-hmm. But I definitely, I mean, because at the end of the day, we're all animals, you know? Like, we built the rooms and the houses and everything that we're in. Like, this isn't our natural habitat. This is what we created. We were we're supposed to be outside to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I do understand that not everybody enjoys the outdoors as much as, say you or me, or hell, there's even some people that love the outdoors that we can't even compare to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn, like, what are you doing even living in a house, bro?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like what are you doing with
you know,
electricity, bro? Like, come on.
but, fresh air, sun, the wind, like, going for a walk. Like, nobody's ever got fat from going on a walk and being outside. Nobody's ever, like, just really had too much negative, I guess, in that aspect of it, from just, like, hanging outside, going to the beach, or just spending some time, watching the waves or whatever. Like, who gets depressed from seeing that?
Yeah, I mean, I know certain outdoors activities may have like barriers of entry, like archery, fishing. It definitely, and there's an upfront cost. That can. I mean, there's definitely cheap equipment that you can get. You can start with certain, not, but cheap to some is not necessarily cheap for others, right? It depends. But there's definitely other things that you can do that's free, like a hike, walking a trail. That's definitely something you can do for free. Like even like right now, like if you have the internet is basically utility at this point. Learning how to like, I don't know, learning how to cook. I mean, you got to eat to survive, right? Like learning how to cook. That's one of the things that I kind of like really basically leaned on for in terms of mental decompression, because I do like to like cook and everything. You and I both have a Traeger, and it's the best thing ever.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I got a new recipe I got to share with you after this. It's been quite the hit with everybody that's been eating it, so.
Dude, my smoked carne asada, dude, was freaking delicious. So it's like,
Oh, yeah, that was looking good. That was looking good.
yeah, I'm gonna share that recipe with you too. I mean, eventually, I'm gonna also start an Instagram. Well, I mean, there's already a page for cooking, but eventually, I'm gonna start posting a lot more to it. Yeah, yeah, and like I'm hoping that I can at least also give some entertainment value for some people that are just not necessarily they're just looking for something to watch on YouTube. But yeah, so all these things like playing mental health, and I think I think the discussion that we just had right now is really really good, and I think we should keep having more of these discussions. It's something that I don't think we'll ever have anything that we won't be able to talk about, or we will run out of things to talk about, because it's just a very broad category. So I'm really hoping that this finds itself with people, and eventually people do get to see this and at least get some value out of it. um, yeah, and I definitely appreciate you taking the time to actually being able to talk to me. We're about 3 minutes, or actually 2 minutes away from the 1 hour mark. But is there any last comments that you want to talk about versus like in terms of like mental health in the outdoors, like anything?
I mean, mental health and the outdoors. I think, I paraphrase, or not paraphrasing, but to sum it up, I think the outdoors can help most everybody to some degree. There are free things that you can do, as well as higher level paid entries that you can do for that. That all depends on what your wallet can handle. But I think at the end of the day, like one just thing that'll help is just some type of healthy hobby.
Mm-hmm.
There are some destructive hobbies that people have,
Mm-hmm.
but whether that be outdoor or indoor, whatever helps you decompress and de-stress, and just generally just brings happiness and joy. As long as it's not being self-destructive in any way, then that'll help with, I think, a lot of mental illnesses, and with your mental health, and just in general.
Yeah.
Idle hands gets you stir crazy,
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, hopefully hopefully I can have you back again, and this time we'll talk more about like how to kind of like break through those barriers of entry, like for certain activities, especially those people that are interested in like going to do outdoors as a way of mental coping with mental stress. And yeah, definitely. I mean, because again, there's going to be a lot of stuff we talk about, and I mean, we couldn't talk about everything right now. I mean, as of right now, I'm trying to keep the podcast to an hour. I still have some audio issues I need to address, and I should have announced that earlier. But they're very limited with the technology at the moment, and it's gonna get better from here. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so definitely. So I myself am very. I feel very good talking about these type of things, and I think time flew by really quick right now. It's already an hour.
I didn't even think it was an hour. Like, I wasn't even paying attention to the clock. I thought it was like, yeah, I thought we started like 30 minutes ago. We still got time.
No, we definitely don't have time to do that. Like we just hit the 1 minute mark. I mean, if it goes a few minutes, it's not a big deal. But yeah. So definitely, Garrett, I definitely appreciate you being on this podcast. You're definitely one of the first people that are going to be on the episode, just because the impact that you had on my life. Getting me into the outdoors, which definitely helped, especially right now during these tough times that we're facing, and with the COVID and people being locked down, and I mean, the issue of mental health is always going to be there. So I think it's always like something that we need to talk about. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate being on here and good talking with you.
Definitely, man. We'll see you again next time. Come to Texas.
I will.